That's to Sinclair.
Good afternoon, everyone.
It's Kieran Ken.
Good afternoon, everyone. I wonder if I could ask participants to mute their microphones unless they're talking so that we limit the amount of background noise. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to this discussion on the Morecambe Bay proposal for local government reorganization. My name is Giles Archibald. I'm the leader of South Lakeland District Council, and I'm joined today by the leader of Barrow Borough Council, Ann Thompson, and by the leader of Lancaster City Council, Erica Lewis. If you move to the next slide, if folks, Erica Lewis, thank you. Lawrence Conway is on holiday today, but we do have Kieran Keane, the Chief Executive of Lancaster City Council, and Sam Plum, the Chief Executive of Barrow Borough Council, on the call as well. What we'd like to do is to just give you a brief presentation to update you on the proposal that is currently sitting with government to create a Bay unitary council, in other words, collapse the functions of the county council and the district councils into one local authority. And to give you a sense of our understanding of the next steps in the process. Now, I would just say that we are recording this meeting so that it is available on social media. We are leaving plenty of time for questions, since there's quite a large number of people on this Teams meeting. What I would ask you to do is to put your questions into the chat. We have had one or two questions beforehand, and what I will do is I will, when we get to the questions, I will read out the questions and then ask the appropriate leader or chief executive to respond to those questions. So if we can now move to the next slide, please. Just by way of background, Barrow, South Lakeland, and Lancaster City Council had recognized a few years ago that we had common interests, particularly economic interests, and we'd formed a committee to look at how we could work together to enhance the economic activity around the Bay. We did this, as I say, with the economy in mind, and we didn't really have any ulterior motive behind it. But when the government came out fairly recently and said, well, we're wanting to reorganize local authorities in Cumbria, that immediately posed the question for us, should we as three authorities be looking at coming forward with a proposal for a unitary authority? And it didn't take us very long to realize that yes, we should. There were tremendous advantages over the alternatives of a Morecambe Bay unitary authority. We didn't have much time to put it together. We were asked to submit our proposal within a 2-month period. We did so. As we'll explain later, it seems that our concept has significant support amongst the business and other communities.
Come in a minute. Be behind that.
Somebody's not on mute, so if they could. Okay. So we expect government very shortly to announce a consultation process on the proposals. We're fairly hopeful that the Bay proposal, which was very comprehensive and, as I say, had a lot of support, will be one of the ones that will be consulted on. It'll probably take about 8 weeks, and obviously we are going, once we know that the Bay is one of the finalists, we'll be very active in seeking your input into that proposal, and we'd like very much for everybody, as many people as possible, to respond to the government. So if we go on, so that's just shows the geography of it. You can see why it makes so much sense, and we'll come back to why it makes sense throughout the presentation. We go on to the next slide. So this is over to you, David Sykes. If you'd like to introduce yourself, David, and then take us through the next couple of slides.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, my name's David Sykes. I'm a director at South Lakeland District Council, and I've been one of an officer group that's working from across the three councils that has been working to help develop the proposal that has been submitted. So I've just got a couple of slides which really just introduce the proposal, and these the full documentation is available on each of the council's websites, and so that whilst this slideshow is very much a brief summary, you can find the full detail by visiting the proposal itself. Where we are at this stage in responding to an invitation from government is about a proposal. It's not at this stage a detailed design of what would be the new unitary council for the Bay if it were to proceed. The detailed design will follow once government has considered, if it consults on the proposal, it considers its outcome and then reaches a view as to which proposal, if any, it would take forward for implementation. Then that opens up a further stage of doing detailed design in terms of preparing for a new council to come into being. So at this stage, it is a proposal. It's based on principles rather than absolute detailed design. And we wanted to hear on this slide to really emphasize that the two core principles to how we've put the proposals together is firstly about an agenda of the reform of public services, not just local authority services, but that local authorities work in partnership with other agencies and bodies in the locality, for example, health services. And so by reorganisation of local government, it opens up the opportunity to consider how the totality of public services in the area could be improved. And certainly those that have a strong tie-up with local authority services can lead to a greater sense of reform by sort of joining up these systems, making sure that organisations who hold pieces of the jigsaw about whether it's looking after people, that the many agencies involved are actually better coordinated, brought together, and we believe this proposal enables that. So it's about how we can deliver reform, and that creates better outcomes, better value from the expenditure of public resources. The second proposal we came was not to start from the council will look like X and Y, but that actually we needed to understand the functions and the kind of challenges that the council would address.
Do you want a latte?
No. Someone's just come off mute. Thank you. So we started from a point of understanding the need and the drivers of change and which organisations could be part of solutions. And then we design accordingly around that. So it's a principle of form follows function. The Bay proposal has then identified 4 areas, priorities for reform. These 4 areas being community power and engagement. So the idea of nurturing local ambition and working with communities to achieve them. The community wealth building. So that's about a people-centered approach to economic development and prosperity. Well-being, tackling inequality and inequities, and addressing the climate change emergency and the loss of biodiversity. Next slide, please. So we've presented these in the proposal that starts with a slide like this, which looks at what are the challenges in the Bay Area, and the proposal works through how we would address our approach to tackling these. So in this diagram, you can see that at the centre is the Bay, but actually we've then got the 4 priorities, which includes about the building of the community, building community power, reducing inequality, building community wealth, and meeting the climate emergency. And then around that, you can see the topical areas which the proposal seeks to bring forward solutions to address. So we improve quality of life, protect and enhance our environment, and look at our future economy. And these are, starting down at the bottom of the diagram, age well, live well, and start well, looking at the quality of life throughout life and how that can be improved. Moving more towards economic activity, but improving connectivity, and that's digital and hard infrastructure, transportation, etc. Leveling up, ensuring that we are addressing inequalities and actually are growing and understand how we can perform as well as other areas in the northwest and in the nation, bridging the skills gap, increasing productivity, and protecting our natural assets. And the tackling of the climate emergency has come forward as one of the key things that we see that needs address, and it actually has a relationship to nearly every other part of the proposal. I just then refer to that bullet point, sorry, that bubble just down at the bottom about local leadership and community power. And we feel that whilst we can identify the changes, we can identify what the drivers of change, what's key to achieving it is the quality of the leadership, the ability for local communities to influence the priorities of the area and have a sense of involvement in terms of designing solutions that help the quality of life across the Bay Area. Next slide, please. And I think I'm handing back to Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, David. Much appreciate that. That was very clear. One of the things that was a surprise to me and very pleasing was the amount of support that this proposal garnered in the month and a half in which we were able to discuss it with various stakeholders and with the public. We opened up an opportunity for people to write in their comments in a survey, and that showed that in some 3,000 people did so, 85% of them were in support of a unitary authority around the Morecambe Bay. We also commissioned a professional opinion polling organization to go out and make calls to about 1,000 residents, and again there was strong support for the Bay. Our proposal was taken to the councils in Barrow, South Lakeland and Lancaster, and again achieved overwhelming support amongst the councillors, some of whom are also county councillors. And as you can see, 110 councillors voted for. This is the only bid. There are other bids, but this is the only bid that has 100% support of the district councils involved. I can go into more detail later on, but there isn't agreement amongst the other district councils as to how they should be reorganized. We've been talking to the parish and town councils and see support from them. There's support from businesses and universities. And I think it is very much a bottom-up concept. There seems to be a lot of foundational support for this concept. If we can move to the next slide. One of the criteria that government has set is that there should be at least 300,000 residents in a new unitary, and we satisfy that criteria. One of the reasons why we looked at working together to foster economic growth was because we are a functioning economic area. 96% of the labour force work and live in the area. 75% plus of house moves take place within the area. There is local identity, local history. The businesses are complementary. And very importantly, and even more importantly, given the government plans, we share a common health footprint, which, as we'll explain later, gives us terrific opportunities for working with social care and other initiatives. And the four northern districts, of course, in Cumbria also share a health footprint. This does not exclude any other Lancashire options, so it leaves open the possibility that Lancashire might reorganise at some point in the future. I think we move to the next slide. I think Anne wanted to say a few words around these topics. Anne? Anne Thompson, the leader of Barrow Borough Council.
Oh, thanks, Giles. Yes. Right. Well, when we first came together as leaders of these three authorities, Giles, myself, and Erica, we realised we had a common thread that we wanted to achieve with our leadership, and addressing inequalities and improving the outcomes of our residents was one of the main threads, as well as climate change and other things. And it was quite amazing, really, that because we're not all of the same political party, and it's amazing that we all felt this urge that we had to do something to improve the life chances and the skills and everything within our boroughs and our city districts. So my little baby is children's services. I believe children's services is failing. I believe it's been failing for years, and I believe we need to start from the very bottom of children's services and work upwards, taking everybody with us on a journey to actually provide a children's services that we can be proud of. And at the heart of this service will be the people who are using the service, as well as the people who are running the service. The people who use the service need to be wrapped. They're so vulnerable, and they need to be wrapped up with love, care, compassion, and kindness, so that we can give them the best chance to either keep the children or to move on to a better life for themselves. You know, and I think with adult social care, there is a lot of problems. The government have been promised for years to do something about adult social care, and nothing's been done. We still don't know. And so I think with a health footprint of the Morecambe Bay Health Authority, I think we can start working together in a far more better way with adult social care, so that we can actually make it so that it actually works for the people who are in the social care, receiving the social care, and for those who work in it. We've also got a chance to review mental health and other services. You know, a lot of the mental health services, especially children's mental health services, haven't been on par for years. You know, I've been through that service myself, and you know, I had a bad outcome with it, and to me, it just let us as a family down. And if I feel like that, there must be hundreds and hundreds of other families in the areas who feel the same way and feel that they've been let down by children's mental health services. You know, we've got brilliant charities. We've got brilliant charities in the area, and they do the best. But at the end of the day, the statutory services have to work. And I think the only way they are going to work for what our outcomes are and what we want to do is to reform them from the bottom up, and to give everybody the best start in life and improve chances as they go through their lives, and to hopefully end their life in the best sort of way. Thank you. Next slide. Is this mine as well, Giles?
It is, Anne.
All right, okay. Right, we've already got an ambitious economic prosperity agenda that already exists, because we've already put in a growth bid to the government. We've also got a cultural compact, which means that we've been working together for quite a few years on this. We have got a common economic area. You know, we've got the A590 that goes right through Barrow, South Lakes, you know, and then tags onto the motorway to get us to Lancaster and through all them areas. You know, the growth deal has gone before ministers. Unfortunately, we never heard much back. We never got anything back. But the focus on that was reducing inequalities and community wealth building, because that is firmly at the heart of everything we do. We need to the facilities and the creation of the combined authority and possible devolution deal would give us some money to work towards these goals, you know, and I think we have a really full economic functioning area, which we don't at the moment make the best of. So I really think we need to progress this forward, so that's best for all our businesses and all our places. Excuse me. We need to strengthen the national contribution of the Bay. We have a wonderful area. We're full of green energy, nuclear energy, advanced manufacturing in defence and life sciences. We've got ports, we've got water, we've got beautiful natural assets. Absolutely, it's a wonderful place to live. And I think we need to make more of that and make more of tourism, and actually make sure that we protect these areas, protect the natural resources of the bay. And I think by being one joined up authority, I think that's the best way forward to make sure that the environmental issues are at the forefront of everything we do. Right, thanks, Giles.
Thank you very much, Anne. Now I'd like to ask Erica.
Thank you. So, as Giles and Anne have both mentioned, the climate emergency and tackling biodiversity loss is a kind of shared passion and a commitment across our three councils. All three councils have declared a climate emergency. All three councils are well progressed in their discussions about how we reach net carbon zero for 2030, and more importantly, how we not only reach it, but how we learn from those in our community and in our region who are further advanced on that journey than we are, and how we make sure that everybody can come with us. Because while it is important that our three councils reach that target, it will only actually, rise to the challenge of the climate emergency if we can in fact take as many people with us as possible. We think that across our region, the kind of mix of the skills and talents of our people and the mix of education and industry that we have the capacity to make a significant contribution to our region and in fact to the world in terms of talking about low carbon energy and green technologies. And I think the thing we are all keenly aware of at the moment is that on the back of the economic crisis that COVID has brought us, we really do need to look at ways that ground economic development and regeneration in sustainable strategies and low carbon strategies, but also in ways that are influenced and controlled by local people. And that is, of course, the heart of community wealth building, that idea that you want to spend local and buy local and keep more of what is generated in your area. And at the moment, we don't necessarily do as well as we could do that across, large institutions and across the councils, but we're all engaged in that conversation about how we can do more to support local businesses and local jobs by keeping more of what is earned here in our region. Next slide, please. So we've talked a bit about leadership throughout this proposal. We are, it's been really interesting for me as a journey. I'm a really recently new council leader. I've been on board 2 years in May, and it's been really interesting to be part of this journey. When I was first elected, there was this kind of loose coordination with South Lakeland and Barrow around particular issues. So Anne mentioned the Cultural Compact and the economic prosperity plan that we put to government, and we were kind of exploring how and where we should work together. And as the kind of discussion about local government reorganisation rumbled along, we became very clear after kind of testing in it and exploring it in all the ways we could, that we believe that the best way to serve our residents in our region is through the formation of a Bay unitary authority. The proposal for Lancaster, if we were to be reorganised in Lancashire, and that reorganisation is coming in Lancashire, that we would become part of a unitary that stretched all the way to Blackpool. So it would in fact run the length and breadth of Lancashire, because it would include Ribble Valley. And for South Lakeland and the Bay, South Lakeland and Barrow, there are other options on the table, but none that we think actually properly serves our residents in our region and recognises that we are a functional economic area and recognises that we are in fact a community. The ties of education, of work, of family, crisscross the Bay, and that's really important. The other thing we really wanted to make central to our work and why we're here today and why we've been here on a number of other occasions is there's often a critique of devolution and local government reorganisation that says actually councillors are lucky to get a seat at the table because often it's done centrally from Whitehall, but actually local community organisations, local businesses, local institutions, local residents rarely get a say. So we've been very explicit in trying to make sure that we open this up for conversation. So there was a consultation, there was a very formal opinion poll. We've been running lots of these sessions because we firmly believe in the knowledge and expertise of our people and of our organisations. And we want to build a council that will better serve you. And we think we do that best by working with you from the beginning to talk about, what would a better council for you look like. So this is the journey we are hoping that we are inviting you on, that at some point in the next, week or two, the government will go out for consultation, hopefully, with this as one of the options, and that you will feel that you can participate in that consultation and you can feel that we are building a shared enterprise. We are building a project about rebuilding local government to serve our residents in this region. And we think that, at 320,000 people, it may sound like it's not very big, but actually, compared to many unitaries across the country, it would be bigger than they are. It's just that the government has lifted the floor on a minimum size. So we think it is big enough to be able to exercise those additional functions that would come with being a unitary authority, social care, transport planning, some of those things, but small enough that we can still be connected to our local regions. We can still work closely with parish and town councils, and that people kind of understand that decisions are being made around the Bay for the Bay. So I hope this has given you some overview of our proposals, and I look forward to continuing the conversation with you.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Erica. Very good. And thank you to both Erica and Anne. So we've got a number of questions that have come in, and I will sort of read out the question or summarize the question, and then ask one of the leaders or the chief executives to have a go at responding. And then if anybody else wants to come in from the leadership, please do so. First of all, a question as to why we've changed the name from Morecambe Bay to The Bay. Is this because of the recent TV series, which won't last forever? And are we doing primary research on this that it somehow excludes the current interest that might be in the TV connection? So on the question of the name. So Erica, did you want to have a crack at that one, or?
Sure. So like most things in this proposal, it's a working title. It's not a formal decision that's what a new unitary would be called. I guess in the collaboration between Lancaster, South Lakeland and Barrow, even in the 2 years that I've been around, we've actually worked under a number of different monikers. And actually the Bay is the one that seems to have stuck for the moment. So it wasn't a homage to the television program. I think we were between seasons when we started using it. And like the rest of this process, there will be further consultation and further thought around this.
Great. Thank you, Erica. Anne, maybe you could pick up on this one. The recovery from COVID will hopefully present an opportunity for us to greatly develop a green economy, but also, importantly, as you mentioned, to reduce inequality and poverty. Do you have a sense as to how we might, as a community, agree a set of measurable targets that we'd all work towards if we're all part of a new unitary authority?
You've asked Anne, haven't you? Anne, you're on mute.
Anne, yes, Anne's on mute.
Sorry, I thought I'd unmuted myself. I keep the cursor over it and then it just goes on. It dips. I dip in and out, which is a great relief to some people. But no, on the green economy and targets, I think that they're conversations we've still got to have. When we come down to the minute planning, of what our authorities are going to actually look like when we get down to the nitty-gritty of each service and everything. I think the green agenda will be at the heart of every one of those services. I can't see why it wouldn't be, because we're all three of us are so passionate about the green agenda. And I'm not really a lover of targets. I think that we should have aims, but the aim should be what's going to be achievable and try and go beyond what should be achievable. But I think once you set yourself targets, you're setting yourself up to fail really sometimes. And I think maybe that the best thing to do is, we've got such a strong vision statement in our proposal. You know, we've got a vision statement that goes to the heart of everything that we believe in, and that we know most of our residents believe in and most of our residents want. And so I think stuff like targets will come later on down the line if we need to, but at the moment I can't see the need to be setting targets until we get to the nitty gritty. I'd hate targets to become our sole aim, because you know, we know what it's like in schools. You know, your targets are on attendance and qualifications, and I know a lot of children that fall under the net for things like that, and they've ended up, you know, not being serviced well because they've got special needs and things. So I think our outcomes, what we want to do, is we want a Bay that is green, caring, and actually works for the benefit of every resident within that authority.
Thanks very much. That's well answered. Did you want to say something, Erica?
If I may, so I guess one of the things to say is it will be a new authority when it's formed, and so it will make all of these decisions for itself. At the moment, you know, we have some shared things and we have some things that we're working on. I guess to say to any Lancaster people who are interested in that question of targets, the City Council is currently has been working on a set of internal indicators structured against the Sustainable Development Goals. And what we're trying to do is work on a set of measures that help us think through some of the ideas of donut economics, if you're familiar with that work, and community wealth building, and that idea that there is a kind of, so the principle of donut economics is that idea that there is a livable margin around environmental change, but also around social and economic factors. And so what we're trying to do is come up with a way to use that framework to assess the decisions that we make. But very importantly, we are hoping, and we had hoped that we would do this last year, but COVID got in the way. We're hoping that we will open this out as a conversation for the district, because the Sustainable Development Goals cover just about everything you can think about. And the City Council is of itself quite a small organisation, but we do know that there are amazing things that we could do across the district working together, whether that's on education outcomes or on meeting the climate emergency. So that's a conversation that we're hoping to have with people through the year to come. So if you're a Lancaster person and you're interested in that discussion, keep an eye out for that.
Thanks very much, Erica. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give Kieran and Sam notice that I'm going to be asking them questions. So Simon's question, Kieran, I'd ask you if you would, that's in the chat, if you would be prepared to answer that one in a moment. And Sam, if you'd be prepared to answer Andrew's question in the chat in a moment. But before I get to you both, I'm going to take another couple of questions for leaders. The first question is, where would the authorities' headquarters be located? So Erica, would you like to have a crack at that one first? And then the next one I'm going to ask of Anne. So go ahead.
Thanks, Giles. So this is a question that has come up, I think, at just about every one of the sessions that we've run. And as I said, new authority will make its own decisions, but our feeling very much is, and it ties back to, you know, what we told you in the presentations about local leadership and local connections, is that it would be a multipolar organisation. So we have, Lancaster still has 2 town halls. We, never rationalised that from the 1974 reorganisations. So we have a town hall in Lancaster, we have a town hall in Morecambe, obviously, in Kendall, as one in Barrow. And we think that, one of the things we've all learned through COVID is different ways of working and ways of connecting. And one of the things that I'm very clear about, noticing the question about flooding, is that there's a real difference to respond to a flooding event with an officer who knows the patch like the back of their hand, or to try and have a conversation with somebody who's maybe from a Northwest agency, where when they show up on site, you have to walk them through and explain the causes of flooding to them. And so, you know, I passionately don't want to lose that kind of deep understanding of the communities that we serve and the communities we work in. And so for me, it's not about building a new central office somewhere off the M6. It's about officers, councils, staying spread across the bay, using technology to be better connected.
Thank you very much indeed, Erica. So I'm going to ask a question of Anne, and then but Erica and I will also interject, and then we'll move to Simon and Andrew's questions. The question is about MPs. Have all the MPs in the area been asked for their views? And do we know what they are? Did you want to?
Yeah, well, that's fine, Charles. We have spoken to all the MPs. We've spoken to our MP in Barrow and some part of South Lakes, because we sort of intermingle with constituencies. And you know, from what we can gather, our MP likes our proposal, but he's going for a two actually in Cumbria. But the one thing we have got in common, he doesn't want a unitary Cumbria, which is mainly what all the districts in Cumbria don't want, a unitary Cumbria. They think it's far too big, and it doesn't work now, so it's not going to work in the future as a unitary. So that's as far as I know. I haven't spoken to any other MP in Cumbria, but we do get the odd feedback on what they say.
Yeah, from thank you. From the Tim Farron is very much supportive of the Bay proposal, and as Anne said, the indication are that all of the MPs in Cumbria would prefer a two unitary approach to a single unitary approach. Erica, did you want to add anything?
Sure, very briefly. Mr. Morris's position is somewhat akin to Mr. Fell's position, in that, you know, the idea doesn't sound bad, but not particularly committal in any particular direction. Kat Smith, any of you who know Kat will know that Kat is in fact Barrow born and currently represents Lancaster. She's another example of those family ties that crisscross the Bay, and she supports the proposal.
That's terrific. Thank you very much indeed. So now I'm going to ask Kieran, if it's all right, Kieran, to address Simon's question about commissioning arrangements. Would you be willing to tackle that one, or would you prefer?
Charles. No, I'll have a go at it, and others can join in. But
thank you.
I think it's difficult to be highly specific about the outcomes at the moment, because we haven't created the authority. But I think what we can think about are the principles of how this would work, and there are some precedents going back a good few years now in terms of what happened with Blackburn and Darwen and Blackpool. So as to what might happen depends on how the arrangements will work, but the key principles of a unitary are that it's vertically integrated, so that it will undertake all those services that a top tier authority would have undertaken and that the district would have undertaken. So potentially what would normally happen is you would create, you would have a director of children's services, you'd have a director of public health, you'd have a director of adult services, etc. And those arrangements would be reconstituted for the new authorities. That would take place in the shadow period, and I know each of the councils are committed to working professionally with each other should those arrangements need to change. As to what would happen in the future, whether it would be a refund or not, it's difficult to say at the moment because we don't know what the arrangements would be. But the key principle would be that the unitary authority would take over the provision of those services that would have been provided by Lancashire in the Lancaster area and would have been provided by Cumbria County Council in South Lakes and Barrow, and would be undertaken by the unitary in the future, should that come to pass. Thank you, Giles.
Thank you very much. I don't know if anybody wants to add to that. Sam, maybe the question someone's been answered by Kieran, which is good because I think Kieran has answered the question generally about the functions taken over. But is there anything you want to add about the lead flood authority?
Just to say, Giles, that obviously the Bay is impacted by coastal and river and stream and surface water runoff flooding. So we get it always, and I know it does impact on some parts of the area really badly, and already has done over this winter. So it is something that we would take really seriously. And I think just picking up on Erica's point before about really knowing our patch, really understanding our communities, and the whole ethos of the bid for the Bay is about being community centred and working with our communities to co-produce solutions and to look at prevention and mitigation and alleviation, and only move to kind of engineering solutions where we have to. But it absolutely would be a priority for the Bay Area. I don't see how we could work as a unity authority in our area and not have flood events as a priority. So whether that means there'd be more money going into it than is currently going into it, that's all down into the detail, but it obviously would be something that would be high on our priority list.
That's great. Thank you very much for answering that question. I'm going to come to another question in a moment, but there was a question that was written in about, given the reduction in council layers, what extra work will be put on parish councils? And I'll give a first response to that, and then if anybody wants to wave a hand at me, any of the chief executive or leadership, then I'll happy to bring you in. I think the point that we've tried to make here is that this will be an opportunity for parish councils to step up and perhaps do more, but not an obligation. If parish councils did not wish to do anything more than they're doing right now, that will be fine. But as we come to reorganization, this does present us with a chance to ask the questions. Are there things that you would like to take over in terms of responsibility? If not, that's fine. But if there are, as I say, this presents the opportunity. So it's not our expectation that this would put significant extra onus on, or any extra onus on parish councils, though I'm willing to take that onus. So did anybody want to add to that? No? Okay, so I think there's questions about Lancashire, Erica, and I hope you don't mind picking these up about what the rest of Lancashire feels, and somebody also mentioned about significant conflict, I think, but I'll leave those questions for you.
So obviously people asking questions are aware that there has been, so if we go back in the discussion about local government reorganisation, I guess kind of late, what about 15 months ago, the Prime Minister said, I want to finish devolution in the north, everybody needs a mayor. And you get a unitary authority with an elected mayor. And that started, I think, everybody having more conversations about local government reorganisation. When the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government, MHCLG, came to brief Lancashire leaders, which is the district leaders plus the County Council, Blackpool and Blackburn, so we meet together as a group called Lancashire Leaders. When MHCLG came to brief Lancashire leaders, they said, there are too many of you to form a combined authority. You'd have to do local government reorganisation first before you could go into form a combined authority and seek devolution. The County Council then put forward a proposal to split Lancashire essentially into three, a Greater Blackburn, so an East Lancs, a Greater Blackpool, so Blackpool, Wyre, Fylde, Lancaster and Ribble Valley, and a kind of central Lancashire. And actually, other than, well, so different councils have different opinions as political balance changes and leadership changes, so this is always a slightly difficult concept. But there is a group of councils in the east of Lancashire that have been talking about expanding Blackburn as a unitary for some time. There are a group of councils in central Lancashire that have indicated independently that they would like to work together. And Blackpool, Wire and Fylde already have a joint committee and a shared economic prosperity committee. So they already do quite a lot of work. And those of you who know the area will know that, say, Blackpool provides transport services into Fylde and Wire and things like that. The people that split of Lancashire really doesn't work for are us and Ribble Valley. Ribble Valley is, my understanding from the last time I spoke to Stephen, their leader, is very convinced that it's not going in with anyone. We are very convinced that we would like to go in with South Lakeland and Barrow. I guess the useful thing for our proposal in terms of both local government reorganisation in Lancashire and in Cumbria, Cumbria itself doesn't have enough people to form 2 unitaries if the floor is 300,000. You need to add Lancashire to the district councils in Cumbria in order for that population to be more than 600,000. Taking Lancaster out of that Greater Blackpool proposal put forward by Lancashire County Council doesn't take it under 300,000. So we give viability to 2 unitaries, primarily based in Cumbria, and thus the possibility for a combined authority to be formed in Cumbria. And we don't detract from the viability of the proposals in Lancashire and their ability to form a combined authority. So as I keep telling people, I'm just trying to be helpful here. So that conversation is going on. Kieran and I are having another meeting with Lancashire leaders later this week. From our previous conversations with them, they essentially wish us luck. Blackpool will tell you that being a unitary is the best thing, becoming a unitary is the best thing they've done since sliced bread. And they're apparently still excited about it 20 years after they did it. And, you know, I think Lancashire, seeing us as being slightly further down the line than they are, hopes that they will be able to learn from us. So that's the kind of Lancashire story. And I guess if I could just knock these off very quickly, there's a couple of questions. So the question coming back to the town and parish councils, there is a conversation about whether we would need to finish parishing all of the area. South Lakeland is fully parished, Lancaster isn't, Barrow isn't. Again, it's that conversation we want to have with residents. You know, not all local areas want to have a parish council, but it's a conversation we want to have, and we recognise that if we are asking parish and town councils to do more, they have to be resourced and supported to do more, but we do want that to be locally led. We won't know how many wards there will be in the new authority until the Local Government Boundary Commission does that work. It's not something we get to make a decision about, it's something the Local Government Boundary Commission gets to make a decision about, I guess, and it will be open for public consultation. I guess my feeling is still that we want to try and keep as much local connection as possible, so that pumps for either larger districts with multiple members or smaller districts with more members, but it will be a decision for the Local Government Boundary Commission.
Thank you very much indeed, Erica. I think the questions about Transport Authority, Highways Authority, schooling, Kieran, I think you answered those questions in your general response, but just to make absolutely clear, would you like to just address those 2 questions that are in the chat?
On the question from John Owen, yes, definitely you take on the role of a Transport Authority and Highways Authority. That's clear. The situation in relation to education, I think, will need further explanation. And I don't claim to be particularly expert on that, but clearly the whole education sort of dynamic has shifted considerably since the times when counties were engaged with most schools with the growth of academies and other such arrangements, etc. So there would be some separate arrangements and some pairing off and local support and the areas you see in terms of special needs and those sorts of services that are provided over a global area rather than an individual school level. All those would be provided in some ways. It's not to say that you wouldn't engage with another local authority for the provision of some of those services. You might buy in some of those services rather than provide them yourselves, but that's a decision you take nearer the time as you were designing and looking to seek for the provision of those services. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Kieran. Now there has been a question which I will ask Sam to answer, is in terms of the amount that's been spent on third-party fees, consultants' fees around this. If I may ask you, Sam, obviously people are very aware that we had a very short amount of time to put in a very detailed business case, and it is normal for local government to seek help of consultants, experts in the field that enable us to put together the very detailed response that was demanded of us, and the other councils as well throughout Cumbria have also had to seek additional help in the time available. This was not, and I'm not making a particular comment here, but I think it's an obvious point. This was not an ideal time. All of our councils have been extraordinarily busy as a result of the pandemic. This was not an ideal time, but we were very fortunate in being able to seek consultancy help, and a question did come in as to what has been the expenditure on that, and that's a perfectly reasonable question. It's one that we would make public in due course anyway, so I think we're happy to make that public now, are we not, Sam? So over to you, Sam.
Thanks, Giles. Yeah, so as Giles has just outlined, we had about 9 weeks to come up with a full business case to be submitted to government. As 3 district councils, we didn't have the capacity and in some ways the capability to deliver that without external support. So we really did need to engage with those consultants, and we all are really pleased with the job that the consultants have done for us. So between the 3 borough councils so far, we've committed just over £80,000 each to carry out all the work that we did on the business case, the public consultation, the opinion poll, the ongoing media support, and then sessions like this and the work that we've carried on doing since the bid was submitted in December. An additional piece of work that we were asked to do by government around an impact assessment on our proposal on fire and police authority boundaries as well. So all that work has cost each council just over £80,000. We will know, as it's already been said, within the next week or so whether our proposal is being taken forward to formal consultation, and we will know by summer which proposal has been favoured by government. That's the outline proposal that timescales that we're working to at the moment. So what we've done in the last few weeks is develop a framework agreement to put in place ready for the next stage of this journey that we're on, and there's no financial commitment to that as yet. We're all looking at budget lines in our budgets which haven't been set yet but are being set over the next few weeks. But we do know that whatever proposal is successful, we really hope it will be this one, but whatever proposal is successful, at least Barrow and South Lakeland will be going through a significant period of change for the next 2 years to transfer into a new unitary authority. So there will be an ongoing commitment and need for support from consultants, but the spend today has been just over £80,000 per authority.
Thank you very much indeed, Sam. Now we're coming to the end, so I've got one last question, and I'm going to ask it of all 3 leaders, and I'm going to answer it first myself, and then that'll give the other 2 leaders the opportunity to reflect on it. If there is one thing that makes this most sense around a Bay Unitary Authority, what is it? If there's one thing that for you stands out as to a rationale for moving to a unitary authority, what is it? And I would say, first of all, the desire to continue my close association with Anne and Erica. I think it has been extremely fruitful, and I've learned a lot from them. And we're doing a lot of things in South Lakeland differently as a result of our relationship with them. But if I may, I'm going to use Chairman's to take another one, which is that is to do with the environment. As Erica and Anne have mentioned, we have found extraordinary commonality of passion around the environment. And I'm not just talking about climate change, I'm also talking about biodiversity and the concerns for the environment. And the Bay is an incredibly unique ecosystem. It has 30 nature reserves. It has the area of outstanding natural beauty. It has 2 national parks. This is an opportunity for us to provide leadership around delivering enhanced environment. And I'm very enthusiastic about the opportunity of working with Anne and Erica, who share this passion, to really show that we can create something really special around the Bay. Anne, could I come to you next?
Turn myself off again, turn on again and off again. Yeah, well, mine's obvious. It's the reformation of the reforming of children's services and adult care and any sort of services that children attend. You know, I just want the best start in life for children, and I want that start to keep going the whole of their life, so that they can really fulfil all the potential. And I think only by reforming all these services and actually putting the resident and the community and the person and the child first, will we ever achieve pure, you know, to try and tackle inequalities. It's the only way to do it. COVID crisis has shown inequality is really at the heart of everything. Even the pandemic, you know, more people have died in, you know, that are poorer and in more less affluent areas, and, you know, in obviously deprived areas, and it just shows that the whole system, we need to reform these services to make them fit for purpose and put the resident first, and just to care about these people. You know, they're not commodities. They're not a cow in a field. You'd look after a cow in your field, you know, if you were a farmer. But these, some of the way these people are treated and these children are treated, it's as if they don't care and they've got no feelings. So my passion is to reform these services, to make them fit for purpose, and to make sure that everybody fulfills their potential and has the life that they deserve and should be entitled to. And there ends my rant for today.
No, absolutely, very, very positive, very heartwarming, and thank you very much indeed, Anne, for that, and very much agreed with Erica.
So, as I think I've said before, we all share this commitment around wanting the best form of local government to serve our residents and our region. I think if COVID has shown us anything, it is that local government delivers, and that England's form of overly centralised national government often leaves cracks and areas not well served. And this, for me, is part of making sure that we have the powers and the resources to deliver for local people. So whether that's meeting the climate emergency because we're not butting heads against the county council, who doesn't have the same ambitious approach that we do around transport and highways, whether that's actually about thinking about youth services, adult and children's social care, making better relationships with the hospital services, so with health services, so that we can do more integrated work. You know, one of the things that excites me, both about being leader of Lancaster and about this idea about the Bay, is the thing I said before. You know, across our universities, across our institutions, across our residents and organisations, we have an amazing bank of talents and skills. If we can mobilise that to address the big challenges facing all of us, then we can do amazing things. And that is what I want to see for our region. This is about the best form of local government to serve our residents in our region that mobilises the talents and skills we have to meet the challenges we face.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you, Erica. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Kieran. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, David. And thank you to all of you who've stayed with us for this hour. This is the beginning, we think, of a journey. Please do contact us if you have any questions that we did not address. Please do participate in the consultation when it comes out. We think we'll hear news next week. We want to hear what you think. We want to hear your ideas. We want to continue a very collaborative approach with the public, with the stakeholders, as we move forward. So with that, I will end the meeting with gratitude for your participation. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Giles. It's Diane.
Oh, hi, Diane. Yeah, thanks, Diane.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hello and goodbye all in one. I'm a beetle. And I didn't know it.
There were new messages down the bottom. I just want to make sure I heard all the messages before I go. Oh, it's Diane's. Okay. Lovely. Okay. Bye.
Is it just you and me? No. I think this is such a good, positive prospect.
I think there's quite a few participants still
Yeah.
with us, so it's probably not